coming through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep fitting in.
Yes, people, it's G, and we are back in the building. As you guys can see, as always, scroll across the bottom. We are on the road to 300 subscribers. We are less than 30 away from that 300 mark. So please, my titans, my people, if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you do like the content that you guys see, even if you haven't subscribed, you know what, if you can just at least like the video, that would be much appreciated. So what we're here to talk about today, man, you know, looking at Liverpool, their performances this season, obviously, you know, as a whole, hasn't been good, obviously, of course. Sitting currently, I believe, in 9th. You know, I think we're in 9th. To be honest, who cares? We're out of the top 4. We're not fighting for titles. Knocked out of every competition bar the Champions League. So, you know, trying to have a little look-see as to where we can improve. Now, that's easy, of course, because we all know the areas in which we can improve upon. We all know the areas in which, you know, Liverpool need that kind of, just improvement in a general sense, to be honest with you. Midfield obviously being the key area. But that was too easy. That's too easy. I think what I really wanted to start looking at is individual players in a general sense. So, you know, we've looked at, you know, Bajcetic the other day. Just his role within the team, you know, young Spanish player, you know, coming into, you know, the kind of rubbish he's kind of come into, a little bit unfair on him, but he's been able to come in, served well, to be honest, in the team. And I think that's almost, and I hate this phrase, but it's a phrase that Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool are so synonymous with, is it almost comes like a new signing. So today I wanted to actually take a look at a new signing at the football club, and that's none other than Cody Gakpo. Now, looking at, you know, Gakpo, you know, signed from PSV Eindhoven in the Dutch league, Dutch international. Obviously, we saw him at the World Cup, put in very good performances for the Dutch. I believe their top goal scorer in the tournament as well. So, you know, he's coming in, you know, with a bit of pedigree as well. Forward player. Signed for, I believe it was 37 million, rising up to 50 million, I'm going to say. Obviously add-ons and, you know, performance-based things and stuff like that, all that kind of malarkey. But yeah, you know, young player. There's not really much else really to say on him. I think with him, it's a bit of a... he's fairly new in the scene, so to speak. I would like, yes, you could say, you know, for the last 3-4 years, maybe if you've heard about him when he was young, but I would say in the last 18 months is probably where he's kind of caught the attention of the big boys, I would say, where he's actually shown that he is of a certain level. What level you think that is, that's totally on, you know, that's down to you to kind of interpret yourself. But, you know, he's coming to this Liverpool team. It's a weird one. He's coming to this Liverpool team where Liverpool haven't really had a problem in scoring goals in a general sense. Now, obviously, it's funny. Coincidentally, since he's come, we've had a bit of a problem scoring goals, which I do find quite funny. But in a general sense, this season, Liverpool ain't really had that much issues in scoring goals. You know, you have Salah's, Firmino's, Darwin Núñez, obviously Diaz and Jota, obviously being out injured. I think that kind of accelerated you know, this kind of transfer. I believe Liverpool probably wanted to do this transfer in the summer, but thought to themselves, you know what, with Diaz obviously being out injured, not looking like he's coming back until March, Diogo Jota only just coming back the other day against Everton, Firmino the same, you know, we were kind of down to our bare bones and, you know, having to probably rely on like a Ben Doak or a Harvey Elliott, to be honest, in that attack. And where that attack takes you, I don't even know, because we're already sitting 9th. So the reality is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You know, we're 9th anyway. So is it going to improve us that much? Only time will tell. You know, I'm not here to kind of say otherwise, to be honest with you, because anything can happen. You know, especially with Liverpool as well. You know how Liverpool are. They're the type of team who will probably come out of nowhere and finish 4th. You know, it's that kind of season. You know, it would paper over all the cracks that is going on at the club, but that's something that we would do. You know, go on a run. You know, players start coming back from injury and stuff like that. So then all the excuses then get washed away. And then, all of a sudden Liverpool are this great team, again. And Cody Gakpo has kind of come into that kind of, this kind of like bubble that's kind of going on at Liverpool, with all of this going on. Yeah, so, I feel sorry for him in that sense, because he's a decent player. He's definitely a player that was on quite a few teams' radar. Obviously, Manchester United being one of the main ones. Other clubs out there, Leeds United were actually close to signing him, at the beginning of the season. I believe Chelsea might have had a little look at him, and, other clubs just around Europe would have just had like their say on what they could potentially do, with a Cody Gakpo. Now, look, Gakpo, he's a guy, he's played in a lot of positions. Now, this is his whole career. Obviously, career starting out at PSV, in the under 17s, 18s, 19s, and then obviously first team, and then, his move to Liverpool and the Holland national team. And I think when you look here, obviously, the main thing we can probably take away from this is that he's a left winger. I think no matter what happens between now and his end of Liverpool career, I think we can say he was signed as a left winger at the bare minimum. Yes, he can, as we can see, he's obviously played, as a centre forward. Now this is his whole career. So in his whole career, he's played as centre forward 23 times. As a right winger, he's played 20 times. So he's almost played equal amount on that right hand side. As a left winger, he's played 165 times there, and obviously as an attacking midfielder he has played there once, funnily enough, 1 game, 1 goal. So got a good success rate in that position. And I think obviously he's come to Liverpool now, and it's kind of weird. Obviously he's come to Liverpool. Obviously when he's kind of come in, Darwin Núñez was there but then got himself injured, so he's kind of filled in that, number 9 slot, in that centre forward position, false 9, whatever you want to call it, striker. Let's just say that as if we're just going to keep it as simple as possible, as a striker, he's kind of come in to play that role. Do I think that's his best role? Again, time will tell. Time will tell. I think that's what I really wanted to, kind of dive into, for Cody Gakpo. And look, if we look at his, record, if I take this off for you guys to see, if we look at his record, this is for this season, obviously for the Premier League, plus being in the Dutch League, playing in the Europa League as well. 31 games, 14 goals and 17 assists, which is absolutely phenomenal, by the way. He's got a goals to game ratio of 31 out of 31 games, which is fantastic, as an overall for the season. It shows me as well, he's the type of player. I looked at him before he signed for Liverpool, this is a guy who can do both things, guy who can score, but guy who I'm also looking at to, create the goals for Liverpool. The guy who I'm not solely focusing on to get me all the goals, but at the same time, I do expect you to get your fair share, of goals in a season. I do expect you to be able to contribute, to what's going on in the attacking phase of play, but I might not necessarily be solely looking at you to get me goals. And really the same with assists. I'm probably looking more at the assists than I am the goals, to be honest with you. Because the Ship, one, he's got more assists than he does goals anyway. So whether that's just coincidence or whatever, I feel like he is more facilitator, potentially. But, like I said, time will tell in regards to, what his kind of, role here is at Liverpool. And, if we look at his heat map, now this is his heat map for his time at PSV. So again, we signed him, I would say, as a left winger. Now, it's not to say that he cannot play other positions, because I know that's what people are probably going to put in the comments, or someone's probably going to say straight here, yeah, but he can play. Yes, we all know he can play left, he can play right, he can play through the middle, but predominantly he is a left winger by trade. I don't think anyone could disagree, with that. And again, we're seeing that he's almost playing a different role. If we check here for his heat map for Liverpool, we're almost seeing that there isn't really a specific area that he's playing in, but I would probably say, obviously, in the last couple of matches he's played, down the middle, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, cool. We're trying to get him to play down the middle. We want him to be this potential new Firmino, almost like the Dutch Firmino, which I do find quite funny, because the type of player that, Firmino is, and the kind of, role that he takes up. If you look here, this is Firmino's map just from this season alone. And we can see Firmino's a player who kind of goes everywhere. And if you compare that, so this is Firmino's, if you compare this with this, it's almost quite similar. Obviously, of course, he's just come to Liverpool, so it's not going to be as big, and he's not played as many games for Liverpool as Roberto Firmino. But for me, this being Gakpo, this being Firmino, looks totally different to this right here. That's his PS. This is his PSV, and this is why I looked at everything and I was thinking, are we trying to turn him into that Dutch Firmino? Are we trying to make him into a player that, either way, are we trying to make him into a player that he's not, or are we actually trying to does Klopp actually genuinely think, that he's a player who can do that kind of role? Now, we know what Jurgen Klopp's about. We know what he's like. Jurgen Klopp, square pegs, round holes. He does it quite a lot at this football club. He'll get a player in. I'm almost starting to think, has he ever got a player in that just plays their own position? But of course, your Alisson's quite easy. I'm hoping he wasn't thinking about playing him anywhere else. Virgil van Dijk, obviously at Robertson and stuff like that. But he likes, especially with his forward players anyway, he seems to like to change their roles within the team. Obviously, of course, the player that he signs in does need to then accustom themselves to the role that Jurgen Klopp needs them to do for the team's benefit. Totally makes 100% sense. But I do sometimes worry, and I do sometimes think to myself, why don't you just sign a player who does the role that you want them to do? Why is it you have to sign a player and turn them into that role? At times, I just don't think it makes sense. For example, Thiago, deep line playmaker, not someone who's going to be, in a team that is just running all day long, all game and stuff like that. Their game is based on running effectively. He's come into that kind of team, but he's more of the luxury maestro that we have in the team. And he's only played in teams where, again, he has been the luxury maestro. That's not to say that he can't do industry. It's taken him 3 seasons, but he's probably, I would say now, he's a lot more accustomed to the style of play after about 3 seasons, again, blighted by injuries and things like that, which coincidentally is because of the system that we currently play. And I look at that and I think, okay, so you got in a midfielder there, again, circumstance and things like that. You got him in because we could, the deal was good, and all these kind of, various different things. Fair enough. I totally understand it. I kind of get it to a certain degree. But then I look at, players that he's already had on his books, like a Curtis Jones, for example. Curtis Jones, we already know about him. He doesn't have a position here at the football club in terms of no one can tell me what is Curtis Jones' actual position, not what his best position is. What is his actual position, in the squad? No one can tell me that, unfortunately, because I don't think Jurgen Klopp knows. He was originally a left winger, number 10. All of a sudden now he's a central midfielder. Sometimes he plays games out on the left wing, so again, due to maybe, he's got, I don't even think he's got versatility. I think he's been forced by Jurgen Klopp to have that level of versatility to somehow get himself into the squad in itself. It's a little bit, higgy and a bit wishy-washy in terms of, what he actually offers. And I think Klopp does that again. Thiago, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott being like probably the biggest example, a right winger, all of his life, goes on loan. We send him out on loan as a right winger. He comes back into the squad as a central midfielder. It boggles my mind even to this day as to why not just get the player that you need to play the positions instead of constantly trying to get players and force them into another position. And then we have too many of these teething problems. Then we have too many of these issues. And then it just creates a domino effect moving forward. And that's what I think about with players like, Cody Gakpo, is that, we signed this. This is exactly like, I didn't make this map up, people. This is his own heat map. Again, we're not saying that he cannot play other positions, but he doesn't really play those positions. 70% of the time, if not 80, don't really know in terms if you break it off in percentages. Most of his game is played out there on the left-hand side. So Liverpool obviously had that in mind and obviously knew that, of course, he's someone who can play on the left, but clearly Jurgen Klopp thinks that, this is exactly what he's currently looking for. And I think that's a part of the reason as to why we've seen Cody Gakpo, he got his first goal, decent game against Everton, probably his best game for Liverpool, in that position. I'm me, guys, I'm not one of them people. I don't get gassed off one performance. I am not convinced that that's his position by any stretch of the imagination. I don't really know what his position is. I ain't got a clue, really and truly, where I think he can play. I'm still very like it's a confusing signing for me personally. Nothing suggests to me that he should be a centre forward at this football club. But then nothing really suggests to me that he should be a left winger here either, because we already have those. So why did you sign another one? Which makes me then think that Klopp signed him to play in a different position because he sees something else. Now, as a manager, I expect you to do that anyway. You're going to see something, a lot more different than we are. We already know, again, that's how Klopp moves. Because the way that we think as fans is not the way that Jurgen Klopp is thinking. The amount of bloody team lists I've seen, and people have put Darwin Núñez up top, but Cody Gakpo on the left. Clearly, we must be wrong. Clearly, because that's not what Klopp does. Klopp doesn't do that. He puts Darwin Núñez on the left and he puts Cody Gakpo down the middle. Now, Darwin Núñez on the left, I agree, is a lot more effective. As a number 9, no, because I don't think he's good enough to be a number 9 because of what a number 9 in this team is required to do. I don't look at Darwin Núñez. We'd have to change our game in order to have Darwin Núñez as a number 9 in this squad, because he doesn't fit what a number 9 does. He doesn't press. He's not good at dropping deep. He's a guy who wants to go wide, and all these kind of various different things. And that's cool if we play that kind of game. But clearly, we don't want to play that game. Clearly, he thinks that having a Firmino-esque player, if it's not going to be Firmino, that is the way to move forward, and that's the way that he wants to move forward. Hence the reason why I think he is trying to push Cody Gakpo more centrally, moving forward. Potentially, maybe he might have just stumbled across this. Potentially, it might have just been something that he stumbled across, throughout the season, kind of realized, what, we work better when we've got this Firmino-esque kind of player, which I still think is kind of mad for a player who's basically declining and, going on his way out of Liverpool, that this is still kind of the system. It tells me that we haven't adapted as much as Klopp likes to claim. It tells me that he hasn't really moved past that. We should have moved past the Firmino kind of stage, because otherwise you create problems for when Klopp actually does leave. If the next manager doesn't want to play that, Liverpool are going to be absolutely effed, effed in the B, because the reality is you're going to have to completely change the way you play, do all of these kind of various different things. And if you don't have the players to do it, you're either going to have to go for a crazy rebuild, or, it's just going to look crazy, at the beginning, just like it would anyway if you did get a new manager in regardless. But it's just one of those things that I look at and I think to myself, look, if this is the way that you want to go, it's the way that Klopp wants to go. At the end of the day, he's the manager. He's the one in charge. It's his job on the line. It ain't mine. So that's kind of irrelevant to me. I'm just trying to look at moving forward. Is that the best possible thing moving forward? I don't know, man. Time will tell. Cody Gakpo is a decent player, though. That's the thing I didn't really mind with the deal. Obviously, I thought that deal was then going to be followed up with what we actually need in this football club, which is some midfielders, some good midfielders, instead of playing an 18-year-old who, just about was able to get his driver's license. I assumed that we were going to address the areas that we really needed to address, instead of addressing areas that we didn't need to address and wasn't pressing matters. Hence the reason why Liverpool are currently sitting in 9th, in the Premier League. Even, to be honest, regardless of where we end up as an overall, unless Liverpool could win the Champions League, it's been a shit season, to be honest with you. Even if they were to finish in 4th, it's still been a shit season, just because of the sheer fact that, yeah, you had a great, let's say we have a good run between now and the end of the season. So from February till March, April, May. So for 3 months of a 8 to 9 month season, oh yeah, you were decent. That tells me everything I need to know. Your ratio is that you've had more poor performances than you have good performances. That's not good enough for me. That there's a lot to be asked about that. But in regards to Cody Gakpo, now obviously I've got a video here, and big up, is it, I think, Pie Bag Game. I'll get their link. Found them on Instagram. Big up Ish, who was able to show me what their Instagram is about. And taking a look here, so this is obviously his this is Cody Gakpo, obviously, for PSV. This is what he's like on the counter attack. Now obviously you guys might not be able to read it, so I'll read it out for you at the bottom. So PSV are a team who don't tend to dominate possession. They're a side that deliberately sets out to counter, especially in the big encounters, and that probably suits Cody Gakpo to a T. He is at his best quickly making some combinations and then running in on goal, having made an angled run from wide to center. Again, wide to center. To get the best out of him, he needs partners who are fluid and can interchange with him. Thought of him and Núñez thought of him, Nunes, and Salah on the counter is scary. Now, I do agree in a sense that, so, you know, when we look here, again, this is him for PSV. We can see starting from out to in, he's going to run in now. Boom, boom, boom. Now, again, this is why I say, and this is why I look at it and I think to myself, okay, cool. So if we're seeing this, is that what Klopp is thinking? Doesn't really look like it, because he's kind of leaving Darwin Núñez out there on that left-hand side and leaving Cody Gakpo up top. So what Cody Gakpo is is having to do is drop deep to get the ball from midfield and pick up whatever pieces are kind of left there. And then from there, he's either going to turn, make a run like he did. I think once in the game, he turned and kind of sprinted off, or he's going to have to do the layoff thing and, you know, all of these other kind of various things. Now, his back to goal is pretty decent. Now, he's got good stature about him, so he looks like he's able to do that moving forward. Pressing for me is very, very key in this system. His pressing stats are not that good in a general sense, you know, since his time at PSV. That's something that he's going to need to work on. No problem. You know, we can potentially get there. But is that something that he can actually do? You can work on something forever and ever, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it eventually. Sometimes Aguero couldn't do the press at all. Pep Guardiola realized that. Hence the reason why Aguero left anyway, to be honest, because he just wasn't his type of, like, Pep's got this thing about number 9s anyway for some weird reason, which is why I find him signing a Haaland quite funny. But managers will see that if you don't fit a system, it doesn't really matter who the hell you are, you got to go. You know, if we suddenly got in a possession-based manager like a Luis Enrique, if we got in someone like him, and Salah didn't fit what he was trying to do, I'd expect him to ship Salah out. And I'll be happy. I'll be like, fantastic. Let's get in someone who can do the role. You know, so I'm now not worried, but I am thinking to myself, and I'm going to be intrigued to see how that development of Gakpo actually goes. Will he be able to actually do that? Will he be able to kind of fill in that, as I said, the Dutch Firmino? Will he actually be able to do that? And the thing is, I can't even look at him and get mad at him and say, oh, you're shit, you know, you can't, because at the end of the day, if it's not a role that you're used to. So if you end up not being able to do it, whose fault is that? We've got to look at the manager again, because then the manager's made the wrong signing. You know, there was a hell of players out there I would have thought would have suited Liverpool better. You know, João Felix and then Kunku, you know, these kind of players are both now going to be at, well, one's already at Chelsea, the other one's coming to Chelsea. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking they would have suited our style a lot better. So especially probably and Nkunku, maybe. In fact, no, both of them equally. I think they would have suited what Liverpool were trying to do with their with having a false number 9. You know, and both players are quite young and energetic enough to do the press. Now, I'm not saying that they would be perfect at pressing. No way. Maybe Nkunku a bit more, because I feel like RB Leipzig might play a bit more to our style in terms of the pressing and stuff like that. But I believe that they would have been better options to have. Yes, they would have been more expensive, but it just seems to have made a lot more sense, especially the fact that you ended up getting in a Cody Gakpo. Again, this is where I look at Klopp. This is where Klopp has to earn his big bucks. And, you know me already in terms of my opinions on Klopp. This is why he's under the microscope for me, because I'm looking at every aspect of your game now, because there's a lot of questions that I didn't see when we were winning. You know, there's a lot of questions that I should have asked back then when we was actually winning, because the wins were almost masking and papering over a lot of things that are now coming to fruition here. Again, summer's going to be very interesting to see how Jurgen Klopp does moving forward, but also how the team, with Cody Gakpo obviously coming in now, he's had his 6 months. Next season, I'm not trying to hear any excuses. Darwin Núñez, the exact same. I'm not hearing any excuses. I'm not hearing time. I'm not hearing adaptability. Forget all of that. You're not good enough if you can't now produce. I need you to produce now. For now, Cody Gakpo in particular, obviously that's what we're talking about today. Cody Gakpo in particular, he gets the bit of time. He just come in January. Núñez, no. Núñez, by now, I kind of need to see what it is. You know, blah, blah, blah. We need to see probably output and et cetera, et cetera. With Núñez, it's just a case of he needs to score more. It's quite embarrassing, the sheer fact that he has this amount of shots and does not score. You know, it's never going to, I don't think it's going to improve. I just think you need to be more selective with the shots that you are taking anyway. Cody Gakpo, on the other hand, now we need to see, okay, was that game against Everton just the game against Everton? When we see him up against Newcastle on the weekend, is it going to be more of the same? Are we going to see a different type of Gakpo in a different type of role? Is he going to start on the left? Is Klopp just going to keep the same team and then the same team do the same passages of play? If we see this for the next 5, I mean, I'm giving Liverpool a 10-game run to then really say whether or not I believe that they've turned a corner or anything like that. I don't think they've turned a corner at all. I think it's one game and we've got to wait and see. Let's give them 10 games. After 10 games, we can really judge it. And then we can really judge someone like Gakpo in that role, in that position. And then he's become a lot more accustomed to it. How does he fit in? Jota's coming back in, Firmino coming back in. Diaz will obviously be back in March as well. So it's going to be quite interesting to see. Now, when we look at the heat map from his game against Everton, this is what it is here. So again, not really sticking to a kind of position, a bit like the Firmino thing. And again, we go back to it, a bit like the Firmino thing, you know, but mainly in the central areas. Now, this is his heat map from his game against Wolves. He was on the left-hand side. Okay, so most of his game was played down that left-hand side. Bit more confusing for him, but a lot more accustomed because that's the kind of role that he was playing in for PSV. And then obviously this is him when we faced off against Brighton. Again, that would look, I mean, I look there and I think, bloody hell, that's more of a central midfield position, to be honest with you. You know, that's what it seems like, but you weren't the central midfielder of the day. I think you were actually playing up front. So I find that quite astonishing, but it's almost like he took dropping deep to a whole new level. And he was like, yeah, I need to drop so deep that I'm almost in that midfield area. Again, he has played once as an attacking midfielder from the start. So is that something that potentially Jurgen Klopp is looking at? Again, these are all questions. And I think it's right that we question some of these things because we can see that you've got the players there who can do a role, but currently they're not doing really anything, to be honest with you. I feel like we're stumbling across a lot of tactics. We're stumbling across a lot of formations. For me, nothing has worked this season. There's not one formation that I've looked at and thought, maybe we just go with that one. In terms of where I thought, you know what, Liverpool have looked really good in that. There's been nothing. No 4-3-3, the 4-4-2, the 4-3-1, nothing. Everything to me has looked all the same. It's all looked kind of rubbish, to be honest with you. And the difference that people are then going to argue is, oh, but we against Tottenham and this, nah, I don't think that we was that good in that game. We were just better than what we were in the previous games that you have seen. And we're misconstruing the two. But for me, nothing has really looked that good. You know, everybody got excited when we played this midfield of Bajcetic, Keita, Thiago. Everyone got excited and it was like, oh my goodness, you know, we've stumbled across something. We then get beat 3-0 by Wolves. Everyone's quiet now in that midfield. We beat Everton with a midfield of Bajcetic, Fabinho and Hendo. All of a sudden, everyone thinks Hendo should start the next game. Again, mind-boggling because a minute ago, everyone wanted Bajcetic, Thiago and Keita to play. All of a sudden now, people want to take Keita out and it's let's play Fabinho and Hendo in there. And again, we saw the front lines of these kind of things. At the beginning of the season, it's, oh, but we looked probably really good. I think our best attacking trio would have to be, you know, Diaz, Núñez, Salah. But in my opinion, what I've seen this season, probably the best trio has probably ended up being Darwin Núñez on the left, Salah on the right with Firmino up top. That's for me where Liverpool in an attacking sense have looked a lot better. Cody Gakpo's kind of come in now. Is he going to fill that Firmino role to allow for Darwin Núñez and Mohamed Salah to be able to thrive, you know, for the rest of the season? Only time will tell, but nothing for me is really working. And I think in my opinion, what I think Klopp's trying to do is just get through these games. Whoever's on form, whoever's playing well, you play the next game. Until you start playing shit again, then boom, we just take you out of the team. Or if a player gets injured and then someone else comes back and yada, yada, yada. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk will be back for the next game and stuff like that. We'll then change it up. But when I'm looking at a Cody Gakpo, that's why I just found it intriguing. Again, we look at his map for PSV over there on that left-hand side. We look at his map for Liverpool and it's all over the gaff. And that is going to take a lot of adjustment for him to do. That's going to mean, you know, it's going to take him a bit longer, in my opinion, to try and adjust to our way of kind of playing, which is a little bit unfair on him. But also, I mean, he's got to just get on with it, but it's a little bit unfair on him. And I think that we need to just make sure, I mean, look, as fans, he's flattered to deceive in a sense, like in terms of, yeah, he's only just come, but he hasn't really excited anybody. I feel sorry for him now, looking at all of these stats and stuff like that. I feel a little bit sorry for him, kind of watching him. I'm thinking, man, Klopp's just got you everywhere. So you look like you don't know where you can play, because in every position you don't look that great. So it's like, what do we then do with a player like that? And then when you've got players coming back, Diogo Jota, Luis Diaz and stuff like that, then I'm like, oh, just dash this guy out and then play these guys until the end of the season. But the reality is, it might not even be so simple like that. He might have a position that I think he might, should potentially play, but Klopp's just not playing him in that position. But you guys let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Do you think that, where do you think Cody Gakpo's best position is? I think that's probably the best way to put it. Where do you think it is? Do you think that he should play down the middle? Do you think he can play down the middle? Should we stick him out on the left? Who do we drop when everyone's fit? What is your front three when everybody is fit? For example, like if everyone's fit for the rest of the season, when Diaz comes back and stuff like that, who is your front three for the rest of the season? But yeah, let me know what you guys think, obviously, in the comments. That's my video today on Cody Gakpo. Give me, guys, if you're still here at the end of this video, please let me know which LFC player you would like for me to talk about next. We'll delve into probably the whole team, to be honest with you. But Bajcetic and Cody Gakpo were just two players for this week that I felt that just needed to be spoken about, and just needed to maybe a little bit more in depth into what they actually do here. Are they actually doing as good as we think? Is it just, again, we've been so crap this season that we are overrating some of the performances, which I do believe we are, to be fair. But at the same time, some of those performances do need to warrant, praise and stuff like that. But like I said, let me know what you guys think, obviously, in the comments. Please make sure you like. Please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you share this out. Make sure you go check out my boy JJ on the Jerry James Show. He will have a preview coming out this evening with a Newcastle fan or potential fans. So make sure you guys obviously check that out. His link is in my description. Big up my guy Roms. Big up my guy Ish. I'm G, and I'm out.